This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
The time is precisely 6:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News edited by Dulmin Samarasinghe and read by Chandima Virakon. Headlines. The Olympic Games opening ceremony begins in Tokyo. Organic fertilizer produced using urban waste to be used for economic crops. Limited number of public transport services will be operated between provinces from the 1st of August. Attention paid on increasing the minimum age for domestic service. The final Randoli Perahara of the historic Ruhunu Kataragama Mahadevalaya will parade the streets tonight. In news overseas, Tokyo reports new coronavirus cases. In sports news, the third one-day international between Sri Lanka and India in Colombo disrupted by rain. Local stories in detail. The Olympic Games opening ceremony began today in Tokyo. More than 11,300 athletes from 207 countries will compete over the next couple of weeks to get their hands on the medal they have worked for so long. The Emperor of Japan and about 15 state leaders, including Minister Nama Rajapaksa, are taking part in the ceremony. 9 athletes are representing Sri Lanka at the Olympic Games. Judoka Chamara Dharmavardhana, shuttler Niluka Karunaratne, gymnast Milka Gihani de Silva, shooter Tehani Egodavela, and swimmer Anika Gafur have arrived at the athletes' village during the past few days. Swimmer Matthew Abesinghe is scheduled to leave the US today and is expected to reach Tokyo on Sunday. Sri Lankan flag is carried by the judoka Chamara Dharmavardhana and gymnast Milka Gihani. Government has paid its attention on using organic fertilizer produced using urban waste for economic crops such as tea and rubber. State Minister Kanaka Herath has instructed scientists at tea and rubber research institutes to look into the possibilities. It is expected to use organic fertilizer scientifically proven for tea and rubber plantations. Meanwhile, Chief Prelate of Bellanvilla Rajamahaviharaya and Chief Sanganayaka of Singapore, Venerable Bellanvilla Dharmaratna Thero, said that everyone should support the organic fertilizer program for the betterment of the country. Venerable Bellanvilla Dharmaratna Thero further said that he appreciated the decision taken by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to use organic fertilizer. Sri Lanka Army has introduced a new machine to produce organic fertilizer. Troops of the 4th Electrical and Engineering Corps and 5th Engineering Services Corps have created a machine that can shred tree leaves and branches into small pieces to produce organic fertilizer. Such a machine costs 750,000 in the market, but the army has spent only 150,000 rupees to produce the machine. State Minister Dilum Amunugama says that public transport services will be operated between provinces from the 1st of August, although travel restrictions were not lifted. He said that a limited number of buses and trains will be run between the provinces. He further said that public transport services will be operated as usual if travel restrictions were removed. Commissioner General of Labour Prabhat Chandrakirti says that attention has been paid on increasing the minimum age for domestic service to 18 years. Children above 16 years have been allowed to be employed, but children in that age category cannot be employed in risky jobs. However, domestic service has not been categorized as a dangerous job at present. 52 occupations have been placed under the dangerous category. With new amendments, it is expected to be increased to 76. The final Randoli Perahara of the annual Asala Perahara festival of the historic Ruhunu Kataragama Mahadevalaya will parade the streets tonight. The procession will commence at an auspicious time and move towards Kirivehera Rajamahaviharaya. Thereafter, Basnayaka Nilame of Ruhunu Kataragama Mahadevalaya, Dishan Gunasekara, will hand over the scroll to the Chief Prelate of Kirivahara Rajamahaviharaya, Venerable Kobavaka Damindatero, informing him about successfully conducting the procession. Special operations are being conducted from today in the Western Province to nab persons who do not wear face masks. Police said that operations have been launched to find persons who violate quarantine regulations during the long weekend. Senior DIG Ajit Rohana said that legal action will be taken against individuals who breach quarantine laws. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
A giant interest rate for your fixed deposit that you deposit this month. Call 0718 800 999.
Continuing with local stories, a group of members of the Samagijana Balavegaya staged a protest today at Homagama based on several issues including fertilizer, fuel and goods prices. Opposition leader Sajit Premadasa joined the protest. They also expressed their views on the defeat of the no-confidence motion against Minister Udayagan Pilla. To end the local news, the headlines again. The Olympic Games opening ceremony begins in Tokyo. Organic fertilizer produced using urban waste to be used for economic crops. Limited number of public transport services will be operated between provinces from the 1st of August. Attention paid on increasing the minimum age for domestic service. The final Randoli Perahara of the historic Ruhunu Kataragama Mahadevalaya will parade the streets tonight. That ends local news.
Now, get your EPF loan information and service details via SMS from HDFC Bank. Wherever you are, being a state and private sector employee, to obtain EPF loan information and service details, just send a SMS mentioning EPF space, name and region to 0718 800 999. HDFC Bank, the bank for your home.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
On the main news story, Ministry of Health says 953 more COVID-19 patients have been discharged from hospitals and treatment centres as they have recovered from the virus infection. This brings the total number of recoveries in the country to 265,708. Sri Lanka has recorded 291,298 cases of COVID-19 so far. 21,631 patients are currently under medical care. Meanwhile, the death toll stands at 3,959. That ends the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, Director General of Road Development Authority LVS Veerakon says that new contractors will be considered to replace the contractors who delay road development activities. He said that the decision has been taken to expedite road development work, including the 100,000 roads program. Priority will be given for the contractors who have achieved targets last year. That ends Watchlight. We move on to the world news now. The headlines. Tokyo reports new coronavirus cases. South Korea extends restrictions amid virus surge. Man rescued in Alaska after week-long bear attack ordeal. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government confirmed 1,359 new coronavirus infections in the capital today. The figure topped 1,000 for the fourth consecutive day. Friday's tally was 88, higher than a week ago, marking the 34th straight day that cases have risen week on week. Tokyo's average number of infections for the 7th days through Friday was 1,386, up 46.5% from the previous week. The total number of cases in the capital now stands at 196,400. South Korean government says it will extend anti-coronavirus restrictions for the capital Seoul and surrounding areas for 2 weeks beyond Sunday. Authorities have imposed the toughest regulations to date for the area in a bid to halt the spread of the Delta variant first identified in India. Curbs include a ban on private gatherings of more than 2 people. However, the daily count of infections nationwide hit 1,630 yesterday, the third highest number since the start of the pandemic. A man has been rescued in Alaska after desperately flagging down help having been attacked and harassed by a grizzly bear for a week. U.S. Coast Guard officials were alerted by an SOS message on a shack roof and spotted a man waving his arms in the air calling for help. The man told them he had been attacked by a bear and hadn't slept for days after it kept coming back to his camp. He was found with chest bruising and an injured leg he had taped up. To end the world news, the headlines again. Tokyo reports new coronavirus cases. South Korea extends restrictions amid virus surge. Man rescued in Alaska after week-long bear attack ordeal. That ends world news.
Development News is brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melba RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melba RB500, number 1 in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
And on development news, Mathura Veragampitiya Road will be renovated. It will be implemented under the program to develop rural roads by laying asphalt. More than 9 million rupees have been allocated for the project. The Road Development Authority will carry out the renovations to the road. That ends development news.
Development News was brought to you by
Quality matters than price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melba RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melba RB500, number 1 in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
And on sports news is cricket, rugby and football. In cricket news, the third one-day international between Sri Lanka and India is now being played at the R. Premadasa International Stadium in Colombo. India won the toss and decided to bat first. India was 147 for 3 wickets in 23 overs when the match was delayed by rain. In rugby news, according to Australia's Players' Union, Australia and New Zealand's decision to pull out of the Rugby League World Cup was premature. The Rugby League Players Association says a number of its members wanted to travel to England for the tournament this autumn. Australia and New Zealand withdrew on Thursday because of player welfare and safety concerns related to COVID-19. And on football, Chelsea will begin the defence of their Women's Super League title at London rivals Arsenal on the opening weekend of the 2021-22 season. The champions have a tough start to the new campaign with a home game against Everton to follow before a trip to Manchester United. The new season kicks off across the weekend of 3rd to 5th September. That ends sports news.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Savings account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
Sri Lankan Airlines has emerged victorious at the Asian Leadership Awards 2021 by winning the award for Best in Managing Health at Work in the Asian HR Leadership Awards category. This award recognizes and applauds the holistic approach taken by the airline to curtail the outbreak of COVID-19 at the workplace. Sri Lankan Airlines' efforts to ensure the well-being of employees since the onset of the pandemic whilst maintaining a productive working environment across the operational areas of the airline were highly commended. That ends Business News.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Savings account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
And on economic news, The Belgian investment company for developing countries agreed with SDB Bank, pioneering provider of financial services, to take up a 10% share of the bank amounting to 925 million rupees at 51.50 a share via SDB Bank's secondary public offering. The agreement was a milestone achievement for Belgian investment company for developing countries and for SDB Bank in its journey towards becoming a leading national development partner with a global focus. That ends economic news.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And finally, on the weather report, the Met Department says southwest monsoon condition is active over the country. Showers or thunder showers will occur at times in western, Sabragamur and central provinces and in Galle and Matra districts. Fairly heavy showers, about 75 millimeters, can be expected at some places in Sabragamur province and in Nura Elia, Galle and Matra districts. Few showers will occur in northwestern province. Fairly strong gusty winds up to 50 kilometers per hour are likely across the island, and strong gusty winds up to 60 kilometers per hour can be expected in the western slope of Central Hills, north central and northwestern provinces, and in the Hambantota, Mana, Vaunia, Kilinochchi and Trincomalee districts. That ends the weather report.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And to conclude this bulletin of news, the headlines again. The Olympic Games opening ceremony begins in Tokyo. Organic fertilizer produced using urban waste to be used for economic crops. Limited number of public transport services will be operated between provinces from the 1st of August. Attention paid on increasing the minimum age for domestic service. The final Randoli Perahara of the historic Ruhunukatragama Mahadevalaya will parade the streets tonight. In news overseas, Tokyo reports new coronavirus cases. And in sports, the third one-day international between Sri Lanka and India in Colombo disrupted by rain. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.